I am Justin Estes, and this is the Untitled Coaching Podcast. And you are?
I'm James Hogan, aka just Hogan or Dr. Hogan.
Dr. Hogan.
Evidence-based chiropractor out of East Dallas, former CrossFit coach, and good friend to this guy.
Well, that's fun. That's nice.
Yeah, I had to throw that in there.
I appreciate it. The reason we do this podcast is it started out, I wanted to do something for my gym. There's a lot of times I'll ask questions before and after class that we just don't have time to dig into. And then today, you're actually the first, depending on when this gets posted. So if it gets posted out of order, sorry, you're the first recording of the coach's version of the Untitled Coaching Podcast.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Honored.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So,
I didn't even know that.
No, you're welcome. I'm honored. I'm honored you're here. And so the I guess the avenue we take with this version is we're going to rap about stuff that coaches should know.
Hell yeah. I'm down for that.
And you having experience coaching CrossFit.
Yeah.
You were an athlete in high school, all the things. I think it's a great way to kick this version off.
Yeah. I think it's a good little niche for me with the coaching background and the other experience. So yeah. Hell yeah. I'm in.
Nice. So when we look at just like let's keep it to our city. Let's keep it to Dallas specifically. Okay. You see a lot of clients, you see a lot of athletes in the Dallas area. You see dancers, you see performance athletes, CrossFitters, people that just train, run, whatever. But you also see a lot of coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the worst question ever. What's the one thing every coach should be doing differently?
I'm going to rephrase that and answer it the way I want to, just because I can.
Perfect.
Instead of the one thing every coach should be doing differently, the one thing I wish every coach would know. And we've kind of, with the coaching collective, shout out, we did a little meeting where we talked about working with athletes with pain. And I would want every coach out there to know that, well, it's not your job to get athletes out of pain. Like it is a part of the job, but it's not, your job is not to diagnose people and specifically work with pain, but you're going to. That's the nature of the job. And I would encourage coaches out there to understand that they have a lot of power in that realm and they can do a lot of really good things, and that most pain will get better on its own. And you have an incredible ability to help people with their pain, even if it's not something you're currently super comfortable with. But with just like a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance, coaches can be a super powerful, impactful person in someone's life beyond just fitness, but also in the realm of pain. Because a lot of pain, with just a little bit of support, a little bit of activity, and a little bit of strengthening can get significantly better, and you can significantly decrease suffering, even if the pain's the same, just by empowering people and being available to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I like that a lot. What I take out of that is we essentially just my best to summarize what you just said,
mm-hmm.
is we have an opportunity to help in a much deeper capacity than we oftentimes do. My opinion on that would be like, coaches don't often take that extra step or 3 steps or however it may be to help someone in pain because we don't feel qualified,
mm-hmm.
or maybe we just are tired at the end of coaching a session. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
But I've
3 in a row or you're out,
Yeah. But I've often heard from my coaches, well, is that just something we can refer out? Because I don't know.
Yeah. And I get that. And both as a young coach, who, at one point was in school, there was a time where I'd be like, man, like, I don't really know what's going on here, but here's some things we can try. And I felt more qualified because I was in the process of that. But I always think of, the amount of people I can interact with in my professional capacity, because I see people one-on-one in the office, is significantly lower than who a coach teaching classes might interact with. Like if you coach 2-3 classes a day, you might interact with 60 to 80 people, where I can only see 8 people a day. And just by getting people moving, being positive, being encouraging, I'm like, yeah, you may not be able to like look at someone's knee and know like, oh, this is a ligament or a meniscal injury, but you can help them find things they can do that maybe don't hurt in the moment. And being able to do things and feel good about doing those things and feeling empowered about being able to still work out will also help with whatever the injury or pain is. And so, yeah, you may not be able to diagnose that injury, but you can make a huge impact in that person's life, which will make them feel empowered and allow them to do things that they wouldn't do otherwise. And that will help with whatever the pain or injury is, even if you don't diagnose it and address it directly. And I think that's a step that every coach should strive to be able to do. And I think a good coach should be able to do. Like, yeah, you can't diagnose it, but you're like, hey, it hurts when you do this. Well, let's try this instead. Let's keep you in here. Let's keep you moving. And instead of that person now being all like bummed out and feeling like they can't do anything, now they're like, oh, like, okay, I couldn't do the back squat today, but I deadlifted a PR, or like I deadlifted some heavy shit, and that felt really good. And so now instead of thinking like, dang, I can't do all the workouts that I love, they're like, no, there's still a lot I can do. And like, maybe we'll get to the pain stuff later, but in the meantime, there's still a lot of really cool stuff I can do. And I can still be in the community with the people that I enjoy. And that's powerful.
Huge. It's huge. It makes a great impact.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'll oftentimes, when someone's like, well, I make it seem like people get hurt in here all the time. But I mean, when you've coached for 12, 38 years, I don't know, it's been a while. You'll run into things from time to time. And at first someone would say my knee hurts, or my back hurts when I run, or whatever it may be. And I would try so hard to find the right scaling for them that it wouldn't hurt. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's squat to a higher box, or let's do this or that. And I was at someone else's gym years ago and saw this interaction happen. And the coach looks at her athlete and she goes, why do you think you need a squat today? Well, it's on the board. Okay. Well, if your knee hurts and squatting hurts, let's find something that doesn't hurt today, and we'll give your knee a couple days and see how it feels in a couple days.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind.
Yeah, like keeping people moving, that's the important part.
Yeah.
Right? Like squatting's badass. I love squatting. Does anyone like need to squat? Is squatting like a requirement? I know we could argue that, yeah, you probably should be able to, but like, do you have to squat today? I think that's a really good thing of like, no, your goal today is to get better. And some days that looks like, balls to the wall, pushing the limits. And sometimes that looks like taking a step back and just like taking it easy breezy a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with going to the gym and getting on the bike for 30 minutes. And in between those 30 minutes, get some sit-ups, get some push-ups, get some ring rows, move. And you may not do the same thing as class, but you were in class. You interacted with people. You got that little dose of dopamine, the hit that I accomplished something. I did the workout.
Fix. You got to get
got to get my fix, bro. And it's kind of funny. Like I do refer clients to you. Anytime something's kind of out of our scope or has been lingering, I'm like, okay, well, let's get eyes and hands on this. Let's make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to jack you up. And I had a client, she's not going to be upset, Calandra.
Yeah.
And she came back and she was like, yeah, kind of feeling a little sore after me with Hogan. And, but he said, you'll be able to figure out tons of stuff to keep me moving. And I started laughing and she was like, yeah, y'all are sick. I was just like, why are we sick?
We might want to cut her name out. Just like you can say that, but me professionally, I don't think I can say that without explicit permission.
Okay. Hey,
I don't think she would mind either, but
yeah,
probably should.
Hey, Aaron, when you listen back on this, we'll cut Calandra's name out.
You can just bleep it for all I care. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, she's like, y'all are sick. And we're like, yeah, so why do you say sick? And she was like, because he's right. Like, you're going to think of like 15 different ways to make me suffer. And I was like, is it suffering? And she was like, man, I really came in here thinking, how do I not train today?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, and then we ended up working out really hard. And she texted me the next day. She's like, I'm so glad I worked out.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, the emotional component of training, people oftentimes disregard for some reason.
Yeah. I think that's a great example of what I think it's important to have, like a community to help take care of people. And like for us to have a relationship is really great as well, because like, I know you and I trust you. And so it's really easy for me to say like, hey, this is the injury, or this is the problem I think you have. And like, hey, I think these movements might be something we need to avoid for now. And it's really easy for me to just be like, hey, I'm going to shoot this information to Justin. You need to keep training. I'm going to send him this information so he knows what to do and what not to do. But at the same time, recognize that like there's a million different movements and exercises. I can't triage every one of those, but I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. This type of stuff will be an issue. And then I know and trust Justin to be like, yeah, I got it. Like he knows like, hey, maybe I didn't specifically say this one exercise, but he knows. And then it's also great because on the back end, like I talk to her and she's like, hey, I'm working out with Justin. And then I can be like, hey, Justin, I didn't have time in the office to get to this. Can you try this out and give me some feedback on how it goes? Knowing that he'll know like, hey, we're going to tiptoe into this and not just go full bore. And then so now it's he's getting feedback from me, I'm getting feedback from him, and we're doing everything in our power to help keep that person working towards their goals while protecting and minimizing the risk to negative consequences. And so now she has a whole support group in the gym, out of the gym, all around. And it's a really great whenever it works out that way. And I really love that.
I agree. You painting that out, in my head, I was like, dang, I didn't realize just how much support they were getting in this little back and forth. Like, that's lucky them. That's awesome. Okay. On that note, I try to tell our coaches all the time, I'm like, hey, lucky that person, they get to train with you today. And I try to do that and to reframe the coaching relationship. So you do come in with this, not to be arrogant, but if I were to tell you like, lucky that person, they get to be treated by you today, it fills you up in this sense of, man, I really have to show up.
Yeah.
I really have to show up. And that's another element, I think, backtracking what you said initially, this just extra level of care and confidence in your ability as a coach, you got to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need to be aware that relationship is super important.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people are walking into your gym knowing that there's a problem that they need help fixing. That's such a vulnerable thing to do. And I think the same thing might happen when people walk in with you. Mentally, they're like, oh, dang, I might physically be broken. And a lot of times physically being broken mentally or emotionally breaks people too.
Yeah.
How can we as coaches support in those situations, like the nagging injury or the coming back from an ACL or the I'm just not the same?
Yeah. You said a lot of stuff there that I really want to kind of touch on a little bit. The first one, I really love what you're saying of like, lucky that person. But I also sometimes think like the inverse is true of like, lucky me that I get to work with that person. Yeah. And so that also makes me feel like, oh man, like I'm so fortunate that I get to work with these awesome people. And that also makes me want to do the best that I can for them. And so I think it's cool to think of it both ways. Like, man, we're both really fortunate to be in this situation where we get to work with each other.
Yeah.
And then one of the other things as you were talking, that kind of like, I never let any of my patients or my athletes, and you've experienced this, I never let them say like, oh, I'm busted or I'm broken or like something's really bad. I'm always like, relentless positivity in a professional sense. Like now in my own life, I'll be doing something, I'll be like, man, I'm being a little bitch. And I'll be like, like, like I'll say things to myself and I'll catch myself. But like when I'm on in a professional capacity, like zero negative talk. Someone may come in with an injury that's like pretty bad, and like pretty bad's a relative term, but like something where it's like significantly impacting their life. But I'm like, yeah, but we can still do X, we can still do Y, we can still do all this cool stuff. Like, hey, like it's going to be okay. We're going to work through this. Like you're going to be okay again. Like just relentless positivity and focusing on the things you can do. And never minimizing anything. You don't minimize their pain. You acknowledge it and like, yeah, that sucks, man. Like I hear you. Like, yeah, I really feel bad for you that you can't do that. But like in the meantime, look at all the stuff we can do. Like there's a lot, and like we're gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna figure it out. And that's something that I can do professionally. That some coaches can always do. And like we were just saying, like you can find some movements and some stuff they can do. And there are some injuries that really suck and impact your life in a really significant way, but being able to do stuff that's hard, stuff that's really cool, stuff that they didn't think they could do that, you know, allows them to continue to like be here and like work with you and work with the coach and do awesome stuff, like that might be the high point of their day.
Oh, for
Where
sure.
this like they get to forget about this, you know, possibly debilitating knee injury. And they get to come in here and like get on the assault bike, or they get to like throw some weight up overhead and just like do some cool stuff where like the injury almost isn't a hindrance. Like, yeah, it's something I got to work with, but it's just like, oh yeah, like we can work with that.
Yeah.
Right. And don't approach it as like, oh yeah, that sucks. Like, man, yeah, you're not going to be able to squat. Like, we don't know that. I don't know that. Like, I like to think I'm a pretty intelligent dude. I can diagnose a knee pretty well, but, you know, I'm never going to tell an athlete like, yeah, you're never going to be able to do that again, because I don't know. And so like your job, especially in a professional sense, is like relentless optimism, relentless positivity. Not like, you know, I always hate the people who are just like rainbows and butterflies all the time of like, dude, like that's a little much, but
Yeah.
like acknowledging what you don't know and like, what would be the genuine optimism, right? Like not just like blowing smoke up their ass, but just being like, hey, like there's still a lot we can do. Let's get after it. And being a positive force while not just like, you know, like making stuff up, I guess.
Yeah, it's really small word changes. I do want to ask you when that relentless positivity shifted for you, but before we get to that, I like to hit on that. You don't want to be overly positive, correct? You don't want to be sunshine and rainbows and just silly with your positivity.
Yeah.
But a practical example is I'll have people all the time, I can't run a sub 10-minute mile. And I'll look at them, and if they've been with me for a while, they'll be like, yet, or
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
or right now. And they just kind of roll their eyes. But I'm like, you say I can't run a sub 10-minute mile, period. That becomes your identity.
Yeah.
That becomes truth for you. And while I'm going to just be real frank, while I don't believe in manifestation, I'm sorry, I do believe in, if I'm going to get into a fight with somebody, and we both play football, and so you can kind of, let's just say one-on-ones. If I'm going to
see you get in a fight with somebody,
yeah, but if I'm going to go one-on-one with, say I'm a freshman and I find myself going against a junior or a senior, and I've got to go head up, and if I immediately tell myself, oh, Brandon's going to destroy me, like I'm going to lose, then I'm not going to come
you
at
have
Brandon.
Significantly increase the odds of that.
Yeah, because I'm not going to, I'm going to hesitate. I'm now in, I got to protect myself rather than I got to do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you add that, I can't run a sub 10-minute mile yet, I've opened the door to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I haven't just closed it completely that it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I think like a lot of times my response to that is like, do you want to? Right? Like if someone's like, yeah, I can't, like running sucks. Like I used to say this a ton. You know, I'd be like, running sucks. I hate running. I'm never going to do it. And I'd be like, well, do you just dislike it? Is it something you want to be good at? Like it kind of like, instead of just being like, yeah, it sucks, you can open the conversation to like, was that something you want to do? Like, do you want it to not suck? Like we can work on that. Whereas like, you know, it becoming part of your identity, like I don't really like that ever. I'm like, I'm always trying to like do new things and get better at things, but using statements like that, maybe you don't have to be like overly positive about it, but you can open the door into like asking the question of like, maybe they do want to be good at it, and they're just like, they never have been. Like I think a lot of people come in and they're like, hey, like I can't do a pull-up because pull-ups are hard, and then that becomes like, hey, do you want to? Like,
do you want to do a pull-up?
Let's work on it, right? Like instead of having that like defeatist attitude of, oh, I can't do one, just be like, hey, like it's a work in progress, right? Like I'm working on it.
Absolutely.
And that's the first step.
Absolutely. I did a thing. I did a like BPR put on it was either Memorial Day or Veterans Day, but they put on this like trek around White Rock deal, and you rucked around White Rock, you biked around White Rock, and then you ran around White Rock. And it's their 1,000,000-meter muster. I think they do that every Memorial Day.
It's a lot of meters.
It's a lot of meters. And I went out, and you kind of like sign up for a time, and you pick a modality. So I was like, I'll take my weight vest and I'll go ruck. And Luke's Locker was sponsoring it, which I thought was so fun, so cool. When you finished, they gave you a hat and a pic of a shirt. And
that's swag.
I was so cool. And the shirt that I grabbed was like running sucks. And I was like, oh, I'm going to grab that because I'm not a runner. And the chick from Loose Locker was like, did you run at any point during that ruck? Yeah. And she was like, even if you ran for 5 meters, you're a runner today.
Yeah.
And it felt so cheesy. I was like, okay. Like,
yeah.
thanks.
Like I personally, like
Yeah.
sometimes some cheesy stuff like that, I'm like, whatever. But then my professional sense kicks in. And I'm like, no, that does make a difference. They're right. They're right.
Dude, and I drove home like, because I was like, I'm not going to wear this really nice running hat she gave me. But I was like, I'm going to wear it because I have been going on these short runs and I have been doing more recs. Yeah, like, why not? So I want to pull back a little bit. I've known you for a while. And the first few years that I knew you professionally, I would never say you were negative, but I've noticed the evolution of this optimism.
It's changed.
Yeah. What was the pivot point, or was there a pivot point that you can put your finger on?
It's hard to say. I don't know if there was a specific point, but I was thinking a lot about some of the things we were going to talk about before this. And I think I was thinking about my own journey, and like when I started my chiropractic journey and doing rehab, I had a very biomechanical model of how injury worked and how pain worked. And so in like a literal sense, I was very much of the mindset of, if someone's having pain, there's something in the body that I can point to and say, that's what's causing the pain. And if we just do X and Y and do the correct things, that's going to fix it, right? Like kind of just removing the person, removing the brain from the body and just being like, that's it. And in school, that's how things work. Like you have a test, they're like, hey, the correct answer is C. And then even when you're doing an exam on a person, they pretend to have a specific injury where if you do a specific test, they're going to go, ow. And that's like, oh, they have this problem. But then you start to see real people in the real world, and it's like, oh, every test hurt. And if every test hurt, then they have like 8 things going on, and like, that's not right. Like, I know they don't have all that going on. Or you really start to, I think it was just like a slow transition of, you eventually like start to learn that, oh, most people, I'm almost 40. Most people at the age of 40, like 50% of people have a disc bulge of some kind with 0 symptoms associated with it. Or I always remember I had a guy who we were working on his neck, and then he was in a car accident, and he had some insurance that was like, hey, just get all the MRIs, go for it, whatever. And so he got an MRI of his shoulder, and we get the report back, and I'm like, dang, that's a nasty looking shoulder. Like his MRI report was like 2 pages long, all kinds of tears, all kinds of degeneration. And then he comes in and he's like, my shoulder's fine. Like he is a bodybuilder. And so like he's beating himself up pretty hard. But he's like, yeah, I bench press 245 today for reps. He's like, I have 0 shoulder pain. And I'm like looking at this report and I'm like, you sure, dude? Like, this is bad, man. And he's like, what are you talking about? And like, honestly, looking back now, I probably did more harm than good with that conversation, because now he's worried about all this stuff in his MRI report, when I should have just been like, hey, man, there's some stuff here, but you don't got to worry about it. And kind of like talk him through it a little bit better. But just over time, you kind of learn that there's so much we don't know in regards to pain and injury. And you start to realize that most people, when they come in to the office and see you, they have multiple things going on, and the pain doesn't follow what it says in the textbook. And a lot of times pain doesn't mean that there's anything wrong in that specific area of their body. Sometimes things just hurt. Like, that's part of life.
Yeah.
And there's not always a mechanical reason why. Like 95% of people are higher, and the literature supports this, are going to have back pain at some point in their life. And that can be like significant, like on your knees, like can't do anything, can't move, period, back pain. And when you look at the literature, it also says 80 to 90% of back pain will just go away on its own in like 6 to 8 weeks. And that's like excruciating 10 out of 10 back pain. Most of it just goes away. And you just start to figure out, like, you'll have, like, you start seeing more people and you're just like, man, I don't know what I did, but they got better.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, and it's just over time, you like, I've taken all these seminars in different soft tissue techniques. I'm like, man, there's like 10 different soft tissue techniques. I'm certified in 4.
Humble brag.
Yeah, no big deal. Whatever. And you realize that they're all different. And so someone might present to your office with a specific type of pain, and like, this one says do this one says do this one says do that. And generally, it doesn't matter which one you do. A lot of times they'll feel better eventually anyway.
Yeah.
And so you kind of start to think like, okay, well, this one kind of explains it as when you do this, the tissue responds this way and it's the fascia. And then this one kind of explains like, oh, when you do this, it's the scar tissue and the muscle. And this one says, oh no, it's the neurological system doing this. And then you're like, they all seem to work about the same. And then so your wheels start turning. And you're just like, if they all seem to work about the same, like, wow, how does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can't explain it. And then I'm a big literature nerd. And so I look at more research and I look at more literature, and you start to realize that like most treatments for pain, let's say like injury being like you're doing a thing and you hurt a pop and it bruises. That's a different ballgame. We're just talking about pain. When you look at the literature and you look at pain, you're like, man, there's like 100 different interventions and they all work about the same. And so at a certain point, you realize it's not necessarily about the intervention. It's about just doing something to like help the person out. And that really seems to be the most important part, is like listening to the person, helping them understand what's going on and letting them know they're going to be okay, educating them a little bit, and then like helping them modify so that they can continue to live their life. Those are the most important things. And at a certain point, you just got to realize like, hey, like, I don't know exactly which intervention is going to be the most helpful for you, but I know that we can figure some things out and try some things out, and you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. You know, it has been really interesting to see how your treatment has changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I would attribute a ton of my, well, if you remember, like I used to text you like, dude, jack myself up. Got to see you tomorrow. Yeah. Like, dude, like everything hurts. Got to see you like ASAP kind of thing. And you'd be like, all right, like I can move some things and can you be here at 2? And it would just be like, what'd you do? What'd you break? And then the last couple of years, it's just been like, hey, we're not going to speak about it that way. Yeah. Hey, we're going to be really intentional about how we talk about this pain. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be really explorative in what works for you. And we're going to be a little bit less aggressive on the tactics. And we're going to spend a lot more time educating you on why this is happening.
Yeah, like specifically in like treatment, I used to think like, you know, you gotta like, man, you gotta get into the tissue and you gotta like, just jam into it. And like, you know, it's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable. And more I see that the way I thought things worked isn't how it works, right? The reason I would go super hard into stuff and like, I got to get the elbow and just like go super hard and it's got to hurt a little bit is because I thought like I was physically making a change in the tissue. And I know that's not the case anymore. And so if it's not physically changing the tissue, like, is it in my benefit? Is it in your benefit for me to go super hard into it? And I think realistically, the answer is no. And so the more accurate model for pain that we use these days, instead of just like the mechanical model, is called the psychosocial. I just want to throw this out here because that's the correct term, where pain is an intersection of the biology, because there can be some actual physical thing going on. Like we can't just discount that altogether. It's for sure. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So the actual biology, psychological factors, which also plays a huge role. And that's like where the positivity and how people think about it and like the narratives I use about it, right? Like how I talk about your pain affects how you think about it, which affects what you experience and how you recover. And then the sociological aspect, which is like, what have you been told by like Instagram and TikTok and like other people in the gym? And it's
GPT.
And it's the intersection and the interplay between those three things that really creates the final outcome of pain. And so how I speak about things plays almost as much a role, and sometimes a greater role when we're talking about long-term chronic pain, as what I do in the office with my hands. And learning more about that model and coming to understand it better was one of the big drivers for me changing how I talk about things. Because the narrative of, if I'm doing like some soft tissue work and I'm like, oh, you got this scar tissue, we got to break up, or one of the ones I really hate is like, hey, you're out of alignment, we got to fix this alignment. Those have consequences of, now you might think oh, I've got all this scar tissue that I got to get worked out, and I can't fix this thing without Hogan doing his thing. And that kind of makes you relying on me, which from a business model, great. From me being an ethical provider stance, terrible, right? Like, I have made you less resilient, less robust, when I should be trying to make you as independent and like injury resistant as possible. So if I'm just like, hey, like, we're just going to love this tissue a little bit, decrease some tension and get you loading it and get you strong again. Like, cool. Now you kind of understand that, like, hey, the tissue's fine. You don't need me. You can handle things yourself. And so now you have left my office and you feel more capable not because of the treatment I did, but because of how I talked about what I'm doing and how I talked about your injury. And that makes a big difference, especially when we're talking about like chronic pain and long-term care. And so,
absolutely.
So, yeah,
I think there's a lot of correlations there. If we take it from a coach, CrossFit coach, powerlifting, whatever your modality is. But if we, just the last thing you said, if you said this is a great business model to dig into you, let you go out, kind of essentially just keep yo-yoing back to me. Like, great, I get more sessions out of you. I would argue that long term, it's not a great business model, because, well, at least from my perspective, like being around Dallas for the last 16, 17 years, our gym is now 17 years old, and having the ability to like see all the back end things before I was the owner, we saw a lot of practitioners before you started working that we were working with, and we were working like 4 or 5 different guys at a time, just based on like their athlete preference and location and all these things. But I saw that you would get to the local comp throwdown season or the open or whatever it may be. And if you've been working with, Dr. Justin, let's just pretend that it's me, and I've been working with you for the last 2 years.
Has a good ring to it, Dr. Justin. Like
Dr. J, let's go.
Oh yeah.
But I've been working with you for 2 years, and I keep the knee kind of keeping you play safe.
Yeah.
And you can function, you can go, you're getting somewhat stronger, you're somewhat competitive. And we've seen it with, I could name off like 10 regionals level people from Dallas. Then they go to regionals, and either the build up to regionals or at regionals or sanctionals or whatever it may be, they blow something up, and then they're like, screw Dr. Justin. I'm never going to them again. And then now you've lost
that's a fair point. Yeah.
You've lost this whole chain of referrals because, at CrossFit's still very popular, but like in its most, like the biggest scene in Dallas, like there were about 15 gyms that were throwing down all the time and sending athletes to these things all the time. If one popular athlete said, don't go see that practitioner, no one went.
Yeah.
And the same thing can happen in coaching, right? Like, your philosophy as a practitioner evolved, and at coaching, we used to be like, man, let's sneakily, we had a head coach years ago that would go on the other gyms' websites to see what they were doing.
Yeah.
And we'd have coaches meetings, and he'd be like, hey, I saw that this one gym, they did, 30 muscle ups unbroken, and they had a bunch of people, oh no, we lost our studio, but hey, we still got audio, baby. We're still
yeah.
But so, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the 30 muscle ups unbroken. We have to beat this gym. We got to beat them.
Good luck.
And it's like awesome. And then we would just bury people, just bury them with programming. And we looked up on our retention, our churn was pretty high. So like industry average, I think like 2023, Two Brain put out that churn for CrossFit gyms was, if you were 7% or higher, you weren't healthy. If you were like 5.6% or lower, you were in like the top 50%. And if you were lower than like 4%, you were deemed like elite.
Dang.
And so our churn was pretty high. Our churn was like 9.1.
Ooh.
And we couldn't figure out why. And so we were like, we got to keep signing people up. And then that coach ended up, transitioning, and it was a very amicable thing, and like love him to death. But when he went to his new gym, we still talked, and he was like, dude, I think I needed to chill out a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, a little bit,
And
maybe.
and then so we found ourselves like not being a competitive gym. And
Mhm.
we had some teams go out to competition this past weekend, and they played really hard, and they played with a lot of integrity. But I looked around and I saw some really impressive lifts, some really impressive things in workouts, and I was just like, I'm I'm gonna sound like a jerk, but I'm like, man, I'm really glad I don't have to coach that guy. I'm really glad this chick is not a member of my gym, because they weren't friendly.
Yeah.
They weren't, the spirit of the thing was so funky. And now it's a competition, so it's different.
Mhm.
But I've noticed that's in the last 9-10 years, since we've stopped being so gung-ho on burying people in workouts. And to our former head coach, you've listened to this, you were part of the transition of us stopping this like burying people thing. Like, he really was a big advocate for like, oh, we need to start balancing things a little bit more, before he left. So I just wanted to put that out there. But it's the same thing. Like, you stopped getting another box to get more leverage on me to dig the elbow in harder.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last
I
time
did some crazy things.
yeah,
like, I'm like, I need to get as much pressure as
Yeah.
possible on this guy's back.
and I like couldn't breathe. And you're like, you'll be all right. Breathe through
like,
it.
suck it up.
Yeah.
Don't be a
But
baby.
you stop doing those things.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't get the immediate, like,
You're still healthy.
I'm
right?
still healthy.
Like, people still get better.
Yeah. And I honestly, it's
And I feel like I see you in the office a lot less than I used to.
But I feel like I refer more people now than I ever have.
Yeah.
But and it's not a thing.
That's true. Yeah,
and
make some good points.
It's not a thing where it's not a fault to you, but it's just like, it's actually like to sing your praises. Like, I'm more comfortable referring in general, because I've seen a shift in how you practice, how other people practice. Fest is just
Something happened over there. Is that?
it's my Airtable. It's just like updating.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's just this whole idea of you don't have to break people.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the most badass workout.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the most badass session. Like, you just need to care about people, meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you
before we do that.
Oh, yeah,
Can we circle back real quick? While you were talking, I thought of something I really wanted to go over.
Yeah.
Because this is like the coaches podcast. Taking that biopsychosocial model we were talking about, and it's not kind of how we were talking about how my practice has changed. I kind of want to talk about like how my coaching style also changed, because I think this being coaches podcast, it's relevant.
Yeah.
I think a great example is, we've all coached a deadlift, right? And typically deadlift, we want a nice flat back, we're stacked and nice and tight. And one of the narratives that I changed in my deadlift, and I think about how I used to say stuff like this and I cringe of like, hey, don't round your back because it'll explode. Like, jokingly.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I would jokingly be like, hey, if you round your back, it's going to explode. Right. But now when I think about that, I'm like, man, I probably made some people scared to deadlift because they're worried. Like, I was reinforcing, and I don't think deadlifting's bad for your back. And I can go a step further and say, I know it's not. I'd say it's actually good for your back. But in that little joking quip, I know I did a disservice to some of my athletes, because now I reinforced the stereotype that deadlifting's bad for your back. I made people afraid to round their back. And I've seen people in office, so I'm like, hey, I need you to move your low back for me. And they're like, it doesn't do that, because they've had this like reinforced narrative that like you should never round your back when you're lift. And I intentionally have people round their back when I lift a ton. I do a ton of Jefferson curls. I do a lot of like weird kind of like dynamic movement stuff. And so now if I'm coaching a deadlift, I usually say like, hey, I want your back flat and I want you to stay tight, because that's not what we're trying to train right now. I'm trying to train some big old tree trunk legs, hamstrings and glutes. And like, your back's going to get hit a little bit, but that's not our goal. And I know if someone's getting after a deadlift and working hard, their back's going to round a little bit. When I'm going for a PR, my back rounds like crazy. If you watch the best deadlifters in the world, their back's going to round. Like, it might not be excessive, but it's going to happen. And so I changed the narrative on that. And now I feel like athletes I coach are less afraid of it, which I think is the goal. I want them to feel more capable. And that's like one example. And so like, when I think about maybe coaching, like, let's say like a snatch or a clean or some of the Olympic lifts, a nice, pretty bar path is awesome, right? It's beautiful. It's a sight to behold. And performance-wise, it's absolutely the best way to do it.
Right.
But if I'm trying to coach someone to have that good bar path, I'm explaining things of like, hey, when that bar gets off of that path we want, you're losing performance. I don't want to be like, hey, when that bar gets away from you and you have to pull it back in, or like when you do something funky on the muscle up, you're potentially going to injure your shoulder, right? Because now they're afraid of weights, and I think that's one of the myths that I think that as coaches, trainers, providers, we need to actively combat in that a lot of people are afraid of strength training because they're intimidated by it, because we have created the narrative that if you don't have perfect technique, you're going to injure yourself. And the evidence to support that isn't that great. Like most people aren't even strong enough to like lift something up that's really going to be dangerous for them. And let's say even if that were true, the risk of injury from being weak and doing nothing is so much worse that it's by perpetuating this narrative of like, oh, you have to have perfect technique, otherwise you're going to get hurt. We're doing a disservice. Like, I would rather just be like, hey, like, you got to get some crappy reps in to figure out what good technique looks like. So start.
Yep.
Right. Pick the thing up, do some strength training. We need to like destigmatize perfect technique. I'm not saying don't coach technique. I'm not saying don't strive for perfect technique. But if you're not letting people do stuff until their technique is perfect, they're never going to do anything. And that is a disservice. Like, I want people to get in the gym and start doing some ugly reps because they're better than doing nothing. And I get it. Like, weights are intimidating. They're kind of scary. Like, but how we talk about it and how we sell our services a little bit is the first step in like destigmatizing that. Like, weights are fun. They're safe. All right. We have the data that shows that strength training and weight training is extremely safe. Whereas we also have the data that says doing nothing and not strength training is extremely deleterious to your health. But at the same time, we're also saying like, oh, you got to do it perfect. Otherwise you're going to injure yourself. Mm-hmm. And so there's like we're sending two different signals. And so don't be afraid of like some crappy reps. Oh, we lost the phone really went crazy. But, yeah. And so like going back to like the coaching message there is like, be careful about how you talk about the technique. Be like, hey, like I'm a big proponent of like, hey, we want this technique because it gets us to train the thing we're trying to train. And if it deviates a little bit, hey, that's okay. If it deviates a lot, hey, now we're kind of off the beaten path. Let's bring it back. And that's something that, I can't tell you where that line is as a good coach. You got to kind of figure it out of like, hey, that squat's not perfect, but it's close enough. I'm going to let him keep going. And then, hey, okay, that squat's a little further off the reservation than I'm comfortable with. Let's bring it back.
Yeah.
But I'm a big proponent of like, give your athletes a little time to play. Otherwise, they're never going to get better. Because if you only do things when they're perfect, you're never going to get anything done. That's a life lesson right there.
100%. I got to talk to a guy that was on CrossFit seminar staff for like 10, 12 years. And he said something very similar, and he said, especially with the deadlift, he said that when they used to do the CrossFit level 2, they would have someone start demoing the deadlift and they would round just like one vertebrae as much as they could, like just slightly. And then all the seminar staff would like throw their PVC pipes, freak out, like try to make it as big of a spectacle as they could.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, like jump on the floor, like flail around, like don't do that. And he's like, he got like 10 years later. And this guy was like, dude, like we don't deadlift at my gym because of that. He's like, I was just scared.
Yeah. Like the deadlift in particular, there's more fear around a deadlift than anything.
Yeah, he's like, we just don't do it.
But it's like the spine's supposed to move.
Right.
And like there's a time and a place for it. And I think that's probably like the easiest example of being like how you talk about it matters. So like think about how many cueing techniques you use where you might be instilling fear. And it's hard, right? Like there's a lot of cues and like analogies and stuff that I loved. I was like, man, these are great. I like worked really hard on these. And now I look back and I'm just like, oh, those suck.
Yeah. We we also used to be very careful about how we coached the snatch if we ever did.
Mm-hmm.
And then we realized, like, you know what? If we have a gym full of people that can snatch fairly well, and we're not like maxing out the snatch all the time, but if we had a gym full of people that most of our ladies could snatch more than 95, most of our dudes could snatch more than like 155, like think about how much better they're going to be overall as human beings.
Yeah.
And it was a very like outlaw way, like shout out Rudy, way of programming and thinking. But we tried it for a few years, and we really did see, we track everything here. You know, Robert, our owner emeritus, former owner, he went to MIT, and data is king, you know.
Data, love it.
And we learned, we saw like, if we coach things a certain way, if we really take our time, not getting people not afraid, squatting heavy, deadlifting heavy, pressing heavy.
Hell yeah.
And then snatching and cleaning relatively heavy. And we do that consistently, and we're just all on the same page about how we're going to scale and coach it. But we're not going to let them freak out, and we're not going to make you like leave if you don't do it, but we're just going to encourage you the right way. I wonder what the injury rate will look like. And it just plummeted.
Yeah.
You know, like we stopped seeing people get hurt doing random things. We stopped seeing people get hurt like doing 100 air squats in a workout, you know? So your verbiage, huge. The way you approach it, huge. And I would almost encourage coaches to rehearse those things. You know,
the repetition it takes to change how you speak takes years.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And I still catch myself sometimes. I'm just like, oh, like I'll throw something out there. Usually like it's a joke or something. And I'm just like, oh, dang, I wish I hadn't said that one. Like I got to work on that one. Especially like I think in coaching, when you're coaching like several classes a day, you kind of like, this is how I've always coached it.
Yeah.
And so you got to give yourself some grace, but also like you got to, the journey of 1,000 miles starts that first step. And so like the first thing is like, oh man, like that one cue or that one analogy or that one little like thing I usually say when I'm coaching whatever, the muscle up, maybe I should change that. And then, you're going to mess it up, but, being aware of it and making that first step is really where it starts.
Yeah, 100% agree.
And it's absolutely worth it. It'll make you a better coach.
For those of you on the video version, I'm going to fix it here in a second. Our camera stand died. I did want to ask you a couple really quick questions before we land the plane. How do you feel about ice baths?
For those of you not familiar with me and with Justin, he's queuing me up for that specifically because I personally loathe them. For me personally, I hate them. I think they're I don't like them. I'm super uncomfortable. But in a more generic sense, I think, at least in this current day and age, I think there's nothing more that is oversold. The promised benefits of the ice bath versus like what the data suggests it actually does are so far apart. The delta is so huge. And I think for, specifically we're talking hypertrophy, muscle building, muscle growth. It's a net negative. Like it's not like a tiny bit. It's a significant negative in that it will impact your gains. It's usually sold as a recovery thing, and most things recovery don't do much. Recovery, the reason the recovery field is so large is because recovery is a very nebulous term. It's like, what is recovery? How do you measure it? What's the objective measure? And a lot of recovery is psychological, and I think the ice bath has a very large psychological component to it because it sucks and it's very cold and it feels like you're doing a lot. But if we look at the actual biological process involved, it's an extra stressor to the system. And so you're doing your workout, you're stressing the system out, and then you're adding another stressor. Mentally, you may feel like you got a lot done. And I think that psychological component is so large that it might kind of like override the actual like biomechanical chemical processes that show us that hey, maybe it's not good hardly at all. I'm a big fan of Dr. Mike Israetel. He's one of the best evidence-based guys in the YouTube space that I know of. And one of the only times he says that like an ice bath might be beneficial is like if you are in like a competition where you have multiple days in a row and you like hit it really hard day 1 and you want to be ready for day 2, he's like, an ice bath might be good then. I think like the sort of like, I like to think of it almost as like you're blunting the training effect of what you did today so that you can be more ready tomorrow. But at the same time, like all that work you did today might not be as effective as it could have been. And so there might be like a sweet spot somewhere where it's like, hey, doing it allows you to train more, but like each individual training session might be a little less effective, but because you could do more, it works out. But we don't have enough data to know where that point is. And I imagine it's a little different for everybody. But I think it's a really expensive way to feel like you're doing something when really you're doing nothing or actually making things a little bit worse. In my opinion.
Yeah.
So if you like it and it's like you vibe with it and you love it and you want to spend $1,000 or more to get your own personal ice bath at home, dope. Go for it. By all means, I'm not trying to yuck your yum. But if you're not able to do it and you don't like it, don't feel bad about not doing it. Maybe even walk around a little smug and be like, they don't know what they're doing. But don't do that. Like I think, I'm a big proponent of, if it doesn't hurt anybody and even if it doesn't do what they say it does, but no one's suffering from it, I'm a big fan of just like live and let live.
Yeah.
But, it's not something most people need. And if that's your jam, go for it. But it's not like the thing in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I have one. I use it training for Hotter in Hell. So I've been riding in the afternoons. And so I'll ride and then I'll just do it to just like down regulate my temperature. I've been hot for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, in that sense, I'm down with that because it is hot.
Yeah. So I'm not,
probably feels pretty good in that regard.
Oh, for sure. But I'm also not doing it at like 40 degrees. Like I'm just throwing a couple bags in there and I'm just trying to cool off because I've been hot.
I vibe with that. I'm down with that.
What are you training for these days?
Well, I was hoping to do a High Rocks, the Dallas High Rocks in November, but it sold out in like 5 seconds.
Dude, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm not surprised. High Rocks is hot right now. Everyone I know is talking about it. But it did inspire me to finally like put my money where my mouth is and start running. And I've actually gotten to a point where I like running now because I actually like learned a little bit about running training and actually like did it.
Did you just go do a 5K?
I recently did a 10K and finished under an hour.
Nice.
Which was my goal.
Nice.
My first goal. So I'd still like to get a little bit faster. But yeah, the High Rocks, I went to a High Rocks and I was like, dang, these guys can move and they're all really good runners. And so, I've been in the fitness space for, 30 years at this point and always just was like, talking about running sucks. I hate it. That was always me. I was always like power lifter. Like I move heavy things. I don't run. That's little people shit.
Yeah.
And then kind of like swallowed my pride and like got a little humble. It's like, I don't know as much about running as I should. And was like, oh, like most of your runs shouldn't be terrible. And so I slowed way down, had to eat a big slice of humble pie. And like, I would usually go run and try and hit like a 9-minute mile for a couple of miles and would finish and just feel like trash. Just be like, oh, dude, I'm dead. And then was kind of looking at like Kipchoge, fastest man alive over distance. Went and looked at some of the stuff his coach was saying and they're like, yeah, like 80% of his mileage is zone 2 where they're like, and occasionally they'll go out and like his buddies will run and they're like, they're trying to see who can run the slowest.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, he's doing most of his running at like an 8-minute mile and the dude can run a marathon at like a 4-minute mile the whole way. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I should not be running a 9-minute mile in my training. And so I was like, I'm going to go do a real zone 2 run. And I think the first day I did it and like, I like to think I'm a pretty fit dude. I've been doing this CrossFit thing for a while. I've been lifting and, all kinds of stuff. I think my first true zone 2 run, I was averaging like a 13.5-minute mile.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, dude, I could walk that almost. Like, I'm up on the Katy Trail and I'm like, everyone thinks like no one, like I'm thinking like,
look at him trying so hard.
Look at that guy. Like he's going so slow. That guy sucks.
Good for him.
And then pretty quickly realizing like, no one knows what I'm doing. They don't care.
No one cares.
And then really quickly realized like, oh, like, going for a run when the weather's nice and hitting that 12-minute mile is actually really nice.
Oh, for sure.
And because I'm running so slow, it doesn't affect my other training. And pretty quickly was able to get it down to like an 11-minute mile and was doing like 5 or 6 miles and feeling good, feeling great.
Nice.
And now I kind of like look forward to weekends when my long run's here because I'm like,
cool.
it's going to be nice.
Yeah.
Get a little sunshine in, get my tan on, and just kind of get to like dissociate for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so now I'm at the point where I'm like, hey, like I'm a runner now.
That's awesome.
It's not my, the weights are forever bay. I love the weights. But it's nice to just be like, yeah, running's dope.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So do you know who Tadej Pogačar is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you listening who don't, like, Tour de France winner, he's going to win today.
Dude's a monster.
Yeah, like right now he's up 4.5 minutes on the tour, which is crazy lead. But Tadej's coach, it's like 85% of his training. Tadej's coach is a professor at a school in Colorado. I don't think it's Colorado State, but it could be. I could be wrong. But I know it's somewhere in Colorado. And I watched this thing. He did this like podcast about zone 2 training. And he's like, I don't let Tadej out of zone 2. He's like, he only trains in zone 2.
Yeah.
And right now on the tour, he is second in the sprint. He's king of the mountain. And he locked it up 2 stages ago. And he's been leading the tour for like 10 stages.
Yeah.
He's won everything this year. And he's just like, he only does zone 2 training.
Yeah. To take it to a place where like my lifters and the CrossFit people can better understand of like, if you're going out and redlining on your run all the time, that's like coming in the gym and trying to like hit your PR every day.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. No one does that.
Yeah.
Whereas like for the Olympic lifts, right? If you're trying to like clean up your technique and just like get some volume underneath you, like you're going to be doing what, like 60%, 70% maybe, which is I'd say relatively easy.
Yeah.
And so like when you're running, like you need to get, I don't want to say junk miles, but you need to get some miles where you're just like working on feeling good running. And you can't do that if you're redlining. Yeah. And so like it's almost cliche at this point. Like you got to slow down to speed up, but like you got to really slow down. Like so many people I talk to, I'm like, hey, whatever you're doing, you got to run slower. And they're like, yeah, no, I get you. And I'm like, no, like, oh yeah, slower. Yeah, it's hard. Like if I didn't have my heart rate monitor on, I would find that I would accidentally, like if I zoned out, all of a sudden I'd be breathing really heavy and I'd look at my watch and I'm like 20, 30 beats over what I should be. And like I had to work on slowing down. Yeah. Like it feels wrong. It takes discipline, but it'll take you really far. For sure. Yeah. Tim Thacker used to be my coach, and I was training to weightlift, and I really wanted to go and like try to make a run at like the American Open. And I had snatched 265 and I just couldn't get under 275. Just couldn't do it. And he's like, dude, for the next like 6 months, you're not going to snatch above 40% of your weight. I bet that was hard. It was awful. Mentally, I bet that was so hard. It was horrible. And then like power clean, same thing. Like, well, I never squat cleaned. That's a lot of not sexy work. Yeah, I never squat cleaned for like, it was like 3 months of not squat cleaning, and it was just like 40 to 45%. And I remember the day that I got to put 55% on the bar, and I was just like, it felt so fun. But then what was crazy was like at the end of that period, I hang snatched 285. Oh. Yeah. That's big boy weight. Just like in a session, just like, yeah. He was like, today you get to have fun. Hell yeah. Do what you want. He's like, it's got to be a hang snatch. And I like get under 285, and I was like, what is happening? But it's so, this zone 2 running, it's the same thing. Like in cycling, like I've been training for hotter than hell. And one of the things that my coach now, Chad, has been telling me, is like, dude, just breathe. Keep it for fun, keep it, and so I've really tried to monitor staying in that zone 2, zone 3. It's been interesting. Mm-hmm. I do, occasionally I'll do like some intervals where I'm just going to like floor it for like 1 or 2 minutes now. And dude, I love it. Yeah. Like I'm doing like a 6:37 minute mile for like, just like a minute, 2 minutes. Nice. And it feels so good. Whereas I used to just like loathe it, but now I'm just like, hell yeah. This is dope. Right. It's really changed the game for me of just like slowing down. That's cool. So where do people find you? How do they get in touch with you? Instagram, hitting me up in my DMs, usually the easiest one. Dr. J.A. Hogan is my kind of personal one. Agility Movement is the like business one. Agilitymovement.org is the website. Those are usually the easiest ways to get a hold of me. Do in-person visits. I also do virtual, and kind of like what we were saying today with like the biopsychosocial thing is like we can get a lot done in a virtual visit. I know a lot of times I think it sounds weird to do like rehab and like rehabilitative exercise in a virtual environment because like most people think of it needs to be like hands-on and you need to like be there, but like I would say most of the benefit can be done just by having someone who knows what they're talking about and like takes the time to listen to you. So, but if that's not your jam, like, man, I'm here to help people out. So like if you're, somewhere out in BFE and you're just like looking for someone in your area, like, and you just happen to be listening to this and you're just like, I like that dude, the cut of that guy's jib, like hit me up. And, I'm always down to help you find someone in the area because finding a good, as a chiropractor, it can be hard to find a good chiropractor. You kind of never know what you're getting into. There's some great physical therapists out there. I think they're usually a little more similar to kind of what I like. But yeah, so don't be afraid to just like hit me up and just be like, hey, I'm looking for someone in my area. I'm happy to help with whatever. Right?
Nice.
Like I just want to do good things,
Just a good dude helping good people do good things.
Hell yeah. Talking about yourself?
Ha, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, man, I appreciate you being on. I am Justin Estes, and this is the Untitled Coaching Podcast. Peace.
Later.